thank you all very much for taking the time to join us. As board members, we're always excited to have the opportunity to interact with students. We're going to cover things at a relatively high level here, just given the time that we have tonight. But, you know, I don't know how much you have heard from Brian and others, but we really do enjoy interacting with you on a one-on-one basis as well. So we can tailor our discussions specifically to what's going on in your studies and with your career aspirations. So this is a learning session, and from here there'll be plenty of opportunity to speak to us either in person or by phone, so that we can provide some insight into what we've experienced. We have a lot of ideas, we have a lot of opinions. We don't have necessarily all the answers, but we can provide our experiences so that you can make the decisions relating to your studies and how you want to start your career. So with that said, we are going to cover the core kind of careers that come out of the School of Accountancy. Whenever you have a degree in accounting, particularly from BYU School of Accounting, you really have endless possibilities. But generally, there are certain careers that lend themselves to accounting. And so John, partner at PwC, is going to talk about audit and tax opportunities. Jay is also from PwC, is going to talk about advisory services. Angela, who's with True Blue, is going to speak about non-public accounting opportunities, so accounting in publicly traded or private companies. And then I'm going to focus a little bit on investment banking, private equity, and consulting. So let's just jump into it. Why don't I turn it over to John? John will start with audit and tax. And John, maybe you can give a little background on yourself and then jump into the opportunities.
Sure. Thanks, Joe. And before I get started, I would like to thank Joe and Brian specifically for setting this up. This has been a great program. We're looking forward to going through this with you, but they've done a lot of work behind the scenes, and I want to acknowledge that and all the stuff that they've done, as well as the tech guys who have been working diligently the past several minutes to make sure that this is going off without a hitch. So thanks, guys, for all of that. My name is John Malin. I'm a tax partner in San Francisco with PwC, and I've been a board member for about 4 or 5 years now, and been able to work behind the scenes with the leadership at the accounting school to make sure that the programs and everything that are going well for you guys and make sure that you're getting the right experience. We wanted to do this to make sure that you're helpful, that you know what you're getting yourselves into as you go through and embark on this career. A little bit more about myself. I did go to BYU. I graduated 25 years ago as part of the first junior core program. I am told that by the professors that they have learned really a lot since that time. They didn't know what they were doing at that point, but they've got it all figured out now, so you guys are safe. Yeah, I've been here for 25 years, so it's been a good run so far. Before I jump into opportunities for specifically around audit and tax, I did want to talk briefly about kind of the skill set that we're looking for across all different lines of service. When you get into the public accounting world, there are certain expectations and things that we're looking for. So everybody knows that we're looking for technical skills, and that's what you're getting in school. Whether it's tax or audit, you're getting those, or advisory, you're getting the technical skills that you need in the program that you have. But sometimes things that don't come top of mind are things like relationship skills. How are you able to interact with other people? How are you able to decipher complex technical situations for the layman, right? Are you able to interact with people? Or do people trust you? Do they trust the relationship that you have with them? That's key. Communication as well. Are you able to interact with people in that way and communicate things in a way that is understandable? I'd throw in their agility. If you look at the accounting world and the profession over the past few years, change has been constant and accelerated. The way we do audits and tax services today is different, likely, than the way we will do them by the time you guys start your careers. technology is moving so fast that if you are not agile, if you are not into change management, if you can't roll with the punches, then you're going to have a tough time. So you need to be able to do that and be able to adapt quickly. I would say also, you need to have a level of perseverance to be able to get through the work that you're doing. This is a very rewarding career, but it's not always easy. And the people that are successful have long-term goals and are able to persevere throughout that process, and also have a nice, strong work ethic. Like I said, very rewarding, but not always easy. So that work ethic really and long-term commitment makes a difference going forward. So with that kind of as an over-encompassing expectation for what we're looking for with people that we bring into the firm, talk a little bit about audit opportunities. So if you look at audits, right? Audits are the basic backbone of our financial services world. Without audits, people can't be we can't make investments, we can't make decisions. So the things that the audits do to make sure that companies are behaving in the right way and that their financial statements reflect reality are key to what we do. So we combine those deep technical skills and sector experiences that we've all learned to help our clients address the challenges of a rapidly changing environment and strengthen the business through the things that we do. To do that, we ask a lot of questions. We ask questions, test assumptions, provide assurances to make sure that investors are getting what they're expecting to be getting. When you go into audit, there are a lot of different areas that you can go into. You can choose to focus on public companies or private companies. There are different rules and different expectations around how you audit a public company and how you audit a private company. So that's something for you to think about. You should also be thinking about what kind of industries do you want to work in? Do you want to work in banking? Do you want to work in financial services? Do you want to work with consumer product goods? Do you want to work with manufacturers or service companies or anything like that? Where is it that you want to focus? And I think also geography is a big piece of what you want to do. Where do you want to be? Family situations play into that. Other kinds of things play into that. And all of these things can be flexible, but you should have an idea. You should have a plan about where you're going to go about it. Going to risks on the tax positions that they're taking, and at least have them understand the risks that they are taking. Sometimes those risks involve disagreements with taxing agencies, with the IRS in the states. And so you need to walk through with authorities and how that is and what positions you've taken and things like that, which can be challenging. It can also be very exciting to do that. And managing the reporting. How do you, right? Sometimes you get into how do we make this better? Part of the process that we all do is how do we make this process improved, more efficient, easier for the clients, etc. So a lot of things in tax. The thing I really like about being in the tax world is working in a partner relationship with our clients to be able to save them money and provide the best outcome for them.
Deals advisory partner at PwC, and I've been doing that for about 20 years. I graduated from BYU and with a degree actually in finance. And so I'll share a little bit about there's so many different backgrounds that you can have in an advisory type of service line within the accounting firms. And so I'm an example of having a different background and finding my way to the accounting firms and the opportunities that present themselves there. I'm in Dallas, Texas, and prior to that was in Los Angeles. I actually started my career at Arthur Andersen in their strategy consulting group, and then ended up doing litigation support and disputes, and then ultimately left, started a financial consulting firm, and then about 15 years ago found my way to PwC and have been doing deals advisory work ever since. So a little bit of background on me. In terms of consulting in general and advisory services at the accounting firms, I think it's imperative to understand what advisory is. All the firms will have different groups in the advisory offering, and so I just want to cover just a few broad topics around that. So John talked about audit or assurance practices as well as tax services. And there are advisory groups within assurance and within tax at all of the accounting firms. And so we don't want to just limit advisory to what we often refer to as advisory services, but there are tax advisory services, tax strategy services. John mentioned mergers and acquisition taxation. Those are advisory groups within tax. And on the assurance side, there's also advisory practices, especially with regard to risk consulting and some of our regulatory consulting practices on that line. Now, what I want to focus on is really some other types of advisory practices so that you can start to become familiar with the different opportunities that might be available to you in an accounting firm. And the way we typically think about our advisory services is across different verticals as well as different horizontals. So on the horizontal side, we would talk about management consulting, strategy consulting, risk consulting, deal consulting, and the like, several different areas of consulting. And on the verticals, we would think about different industries, whether that be our tech and media and telecom space, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, financial services, industrial products, commercial markets, retail. Across those different industries, you're going to have a depth of experience and a lot of repetition in those areas across the different horizontals. So, for example, if I want to do strategy consulting, I can be a strategy consulting person with a lot of depth in any one of those industries. There's other areas and verticals that we describe in advisory, and one would relate to cybersecurity. We do a lot of cybersecurity and privacy work for companies, as well as forensic consulting and disputes. So there's a lot of different types of verticals across those types of consulting. But let me talk about a couple different types of consulting that that I think you'll hear a lot about on campus, and that the recruiters will be there talking about, and that's management consulting and technology consulting. Each of the firms might open themselves up to other types of consulting, strategy consulting, risk consulting, deal consulting, but more often than not, you're going to see a lot of descriptions around management consulting and tech consulting. And what I mean by management consulting is really around helping companies make business decisions. And so when you think about from a management consulting perspective, there's a lot of things you can describe as consulting. But typically within the accounting firms, it can be summarized in terms of data and analytics related to executive management teams, finance, operations, people and organization changes, and what the consulting around that. So there's HR embedded in there. Capital projects and infrastructure projects. A company is investing a lot of money in different infrastructures. They're going to have consultants that will come in and talk to management teams around how best to set that new infrastructure up. And then we even have deal advisory support on the management consulting side, where we're helping companies integrate after an acquisition or after a divestiture, and helping those companies understand the changes that they're about to go through and preparing them for that. So that, in a very high level nutshell, is kind of how I would describe management consulting. It's a lot more operation consulting than you might think of the big three strategy firms that are doing strategy consulting. We do have strategy consulting groups within the accounting firms. So we do compete head on with the big three strategy consulting firms, but there's usually an additional bent of operational strategy that the big three are not as known for. So that's how I would make that distinction, but there's a lot of different opportunities in that vein. Let me talk about tech consulting, and then I want to share with you a little bit about what's the opportunity for you as you sit there and think about ultimately what interests you the most. On the tech consulting side, as John mentioned, there's a huge acceleration and impact in technology that we're seeing in the marketplace, both corporate and in the private sector, and with professional services firms. And PwC is no different than any of the other firms that we compete with or work with in terms of that acceleration of technology. And so what we're finding is a shift, not away from accounting, but a shift into technology and data and analytics with accounting students, with finance students, econ students, what have you. But the additional skills required, especially in any arm of consulting or advisory work, to have data and analytic backgrounds, experience, exposure. You don't have to have a major in it or even a minor, but ultimately exposure to it and an understanding of how it impacts the world today. And I'm putting myself in your shoes. Some of you are pre-management. Some of you have just entered the junior core in the accounting program or maybe in other majors. By the time you graduate in a couple of years, that technology curve will continue to accelerate. And so think about that. If you're interested in consulting or any form of consulting, definitely be open to upskilling in technology and the skills that you'll need out in the marketplace. That's an important imperative that you should be thinking about. So with regard to that, we do look at, we have a lot of technology consulting offerings that we do in all the accounting firms, where we're looking at hiring accounting students, finance students, as well as STEM majors, especially in our engineering programs as well. So there's a lot of different opportunities in that vein. With the minute or two that I have left, I want to just share with you in the consulting side or in the advisory side related to the accounting firms, typically your best opportunities are going to be in the larger cities, San Francisco or LA or Chicago or New York. And then in the mid-sized cities, let's say Atlanta or Dallas, you'll also have equal opportunities there. You typically will not find in the advisory services with, especially in the Big Four accounting, in the smaller offices, you typically will not find as many specialty practices or advisory practices. Why is that? Ultimately, in these specialty practices, you're looking for scale. Scale is important in any business, and it's important from an advisory perspective as well. So in the larger offices, you'll find the greatest opportunities there. I mentioned a lot different types of majors. So accounting, finance, and STEM, there's a lot of different opportunities depending on your major, but specifically for accounting students, the opportunities continue to be really a plethora of those opportunities and great and exciting times ahead for each of you as you decide for ultimately what you want to do. With that, turn the time over to Angela for some non-accounting, non-private professional services opportunities.
Thank you, Jay. I'll do my best to hopefully not have too much emphasis on public accounting because my background is such. Are you guys able to hear me? The screen hasn't seemed to have changed, or at least it hasn't for my bandwidth. So anyways, for those of you I haven't met, my name's Angela Trulevin. I'm currently located in Tacoma, Washington. And for those of you that don't know where that is, that's just a little bit south of Seattle. We're the stepchild, if you will, of Seattle. But I work for a company called True Blue, and we are the people company is what we call it. We connect people with work. And we have 3 different ways that we do that. And as I've joined True Blue, it took a while for me to realize what I was really passionate about. And so I'd encourage you, if you take nothing else from this, especially as auditors, which I am, I lead internal audit for True Blue, but I encourage you to ask a lot of questions. Ask a lot of questions of yourself and ask questions of those around you, not only your fellow students, but also the professionals and the board members as you interact with them on campus, because they have a wealth of information that can help you find that passion. It's not something that's easily articulated right away. Some people wake up, decide, oh, I want to go directly into accounting or into finance, what have you. Others, it takes a little while to go that direction. And then once you do go that direction, where do you want to be successful in your career? And so I actually am not an alumni of BYU. I went to Santa Clara University, but I've been on the board for about 4 or 5 years. I'd have to go back and double check. And I really believe in the program that BYU has, and believe that you really are set up for a lot of success. I did a lot of recruiting on campus when I worked for Ernst & Young for almost 13 years out of the Seattle office, and was just really impressed with the candidates and the experience, the breadth of experience, the international mindset. And so I think if you keep that open mindset, it makes it a lot easier to find that passion. I switched into industry about 2.5 years ago. And when I say industry, I now work for a public company, which is True Blue. We're an NYSE registrant, and I lead up internal audit. And one of the things that I love about that role is that I interact with the board. That's who I report to. So lucky me, I get two bosses. I get to report to two CFOs, one that's the head of the audit committee, and then the other one that's the CFO of our company. So that definitely presents communication opportunities as opposed to challenges. But it's one of those where you get a lot of exposure and you get a lot of opportunity to just see into the heart of the organization when you're looking from an internal audit lens, and you have that scope to see the whole business as opposed to just a part of it. I jumped from public accounting into industry after obviously an extended period of time. I think it's really important that if you decide to make moves like that, that you really think critically about it. And so it was a longer process than I thought it would be, but I really wanted to find a company where I was connected with the mission and the purpose of the company. True Blue, we put a lot of people to work that would otherwise not have employment. And so that changes a lot of people's lives. And one of the things that I realized when I was in public accounting, I was really connected with the people side of the business. I loved the recruiting aspect. That's one of the reasons I joined the BYU board. I love doing trainings and teaching and coaching. And so I thought this would be a great place for me to kind of pursue those passions. And then I thought about the location. I had spent a lot of time traveling, no disrespect to public accounting firms, and I know that my experience was abnormal, but I was flying a lot. My passport is full. My frequent flyer account is full, and what's even more ridiculous is that I'm married to a pilot, so we were always having date night at the airport, but you find ways to make it work with your family. But then with this next move, I wanted to be really strategic, and so I went to a place where I would connected with the mission of the company, and it was a location that worked for my husband and me and our family. And then the other part was I didn't want to limit my exposure, and so that's one of the reasons I took that internal audit role. There's so many opportunities within the company. So in public accounting, there's a lot of structure in place. And as I've come to True Blue, I've gotten to work on so many things besides just accounting. Yes, the external reporting group will come to me and ask me to review the 10Q. That's what I was working on earlier this week, and come up with example disclosures. A lot of times the business will ask me about accounting policies and what's new. But then I've also got opportunities to help set up an employee internal candidate referral program, working with HR. We launched a mobile application to connect our associates with work. Believe it or not, most of them do have smartphones, and so we've found kind of a way to use similar technology to Uber, but to alert them that there's job openings and they can elect to take them and show up on the job site right away. So I worked on the program management of that, from budgeting to the change management, and how we rolled it out to 600 branches and about 700,000 associates, as well as all of our customers, because we have a customer portal as well. So it's great because I get to be involved in the operations, and that's where I would just encourage you guys to think about what makes you excited. How can you really make an impact and drive change? Now, I do credit a lot of my ability to know how to navigate these waters because of all the experiences and opportunities I had in public accounting, working with all these diverse clients. So my other advice to you as well is to find a mentor, or a couple mentors, not just one, because it is really important to have people to bounce ideas off of. And so you're probably thinking, well, how do I find one of those? What does it look like? And you'll just kind of start to know. And I know that sounds cliche, but just an example, recently this last week, there was somebody that went to my high school and my college. We never actually overlapped when we were there, but we did overlap when we were at Ernst & Young. We were in different offices. She was transferring to Seattle right around the time I was transferring out. She's at a crossroads in her career, and she reached out because she could trust me. She knew that we had similar backgrounds, those types of things, and been able to connect her with some folks in my network and really just help her navigate the waters of what these next steps would look like and what she should consider. So I think that's really important as well. But there is kind of no perfect spot. No place is perfect. Don't get hung up on titles as well as you work through this. Earlier, we talked about having that work ethic. As you continue to make an impact, no matter whether that's being a revenue accountant, a GL accountant, tax person, somebody in operations, maybe finance planning and analysis, you've got to not be too hung up on the titles. Every organization's a little bit different there. Just focus on what you can control, which is gaining as many experiences as possible to continue building your resume. I once worked with a chief accounting officer of a Fortune 500 company. She's former partner of an accounting firm, stepped out and then went into this chief accounting officer role. And she gave great advice to us. Just continue to build that resume and the rest will come. So as long as you stay focused on that will actually help you navigate those waters, and those opportunities will start to present themselves to you. You need to have conversations with your leaders above you about what does make you excited. One of the things I mentioned, we have lots of opportunities to improve at my company and improve ourselves. And one of the things the CFO tapped me on the shoulder was to help with career pathing and training and development plans and getting that to be part of the culture, because he knew I was passionate about it. So, really have those honest conversations with the one up above you, because when those opportunities arise or somebody identifies a need, maybe they'll think of you more top of mind. So own your career would be the other piece. So the only other thing I would say is I definitely enjoy industry better. I'm working from my home office right now. I didn't have a lot of those opportunities in the past, or they were just very busy opportunities, I should say. And I was, every night when I would be auditing stock comp, it is kind of nice to actually be receiving it instead of just auditing it. So anyways, that's really it for now, and we can ask questions here in a little bit. And I think I'm turning it over to Joe.
Yes.
I've got Jay, Joe, and John, so pick one.
Thank you, Angela. Okay, great. So obviously what John, Jay, and Angela spoke about were very direct relationships to accounting, to accounting backgrounds, finance backgrounds, things like that, but particularly in the School of Accounting, those careers are a direct result of the studies that you have. What I'm going to talk a little bit about is investment banking and private equity. I'll touch a little bit on consulting as an add-on to what Jay had talked about. But investment banking and private equity are generally a little indirect as far as a School of Accounting to those careers. And I'll explain a little bit why. But my comments as it relates to this are going to be based on again, my experiences, what I've seen, what I see in the market. Please take it just as that. I don't want to discourage anyone from following those paths. If that is where your interest lies, but it does require a lot of focus and attention on your part to work towards those goals. And I'll talk a little bit about how you can go about doing that. So let's start with investment banking and private equity. So generally, the larger firms as it relates to investment banking and private equity are in New York and San Francisco, at least within the United States. Obviously, London, Hong Kong, Shanghai, they have all have the large investment banks and private equity firms. The nice thing that has happened over time is that, and I'd say this has really been the case over the last 5 to 10 years, is a lot of boutique firms in the investment banking and private equity space have popped up in cities all over the world, really, but particularly all over the country. So it really does give you a lot more opportunity to work in smaller cities based on where family is and the like, and still have the opportunity that investment banking and private equity affords you. As it relates to both of those professions, step one is that you better make sure that you love the work, because you are going to be doing that work a lot every single day. It is a very grueling work environment, and you need to make sure you go in there with an open mind as it relates to work-life balance or lack thereof, and what the firms are going to demand of you. So I do think that as a starting point to a career in investment banking and private equity is really to understand the work that you're going to be doing, make sure you've got a true passion for it, and make sure you're very comfortable that you understand the work environment you're going into, and the work-life balance that you're going to have as a result of the demands of that career. So let's now specifically talk a little bit about investment banking versus private equity. So investment banking is definitely a career that you can start right right out of university. Investment banking, for those of you that don't know, and again, all of this very high level, covers things like mergers and acquisitions, equity capital markets, debt capital markets, leverage finance, also in investment banks are the trading and sales functions. So it's really the true revenue drivers of of these large investment banks, or now multifaceted banks that we have. Because of the limited roles that exist within investment banking, and again, just speaking a little bit more of the larger firms, a lot of the investment banks first target finance majors. And so that's what I meant by, if you're in the School of Accounting and you're interested in investment banking, you're going to need to do some legwork here to make sure that you insert yourself in the process. Because just because of the limited number of positions that they have, the investment banks look towards finance, because a lot of those classes do relate to a lot of the work that they're doing. In addition to some of the accounting, which is critical to being a good investment banker, they have some of the valuation classes, the economics classes, things like that, that also round out what they're looking for from individuals. Again, it is extremely possible to go from the School of Accounting into investment banking, but again, you're going to need to spend a little bit more time, working through that. So what I mean by that is you need to understand when the investment banks are on campus, when they're doing their recruiting. Make sure you get on their interview list. If it is something that you are interested in pursuing, attend their networking events, gather contacts, join the investment banking club, meet with board members that have backgrounds in these industries. A lot of times we do have contacts in investment banking that can help provide you further information about the industry or particular investment banks. Family, friends, get to the locations, try to meet with them, in person. And, as you work towards your summer internships, if you are interested in investment banking, try to get an internship. An internship is really actually critical in trying to land one of those full-time jobs. Now, again, what I'm talking about are definitely some of the larger investment banks, but the boutique banks definitely have the same approach. I do think, though, that given that they're in local markets, sometimes those relationships are easier to make. Positions are a little bit more limited, but the relationships are easier to make. So that's investment banking. That's really the background on it, and some of the things that you can do in order to follow a career in investment banking. As it relates to private equity, I think is extremely challenging. Again, not impossible, but extremely challenging to land a job right out of university. A lot of times, the large private equity firms are recruiting from the investment banks. So they will pull 2-year investment bankers out as their associates so that they can start their career in private equity. So, if you are interested in large private equity, definitely investment banking is a very good place to start. The smaller boutique private equity firms are really looking for experienced private equity individuals, or individuals that have some type of operations experience that they like to pull into their firm. So again, those jobs are 1 or 2 here and there with these smaller firms, but there are opportunities there. Experience is also something that they look for. Again, it's not impossible to land jobs in these firms right out of school, but it is definitely more difficult. So if it's private equity is something that you're interested in, you need to really start thinking about that. Now think about where your first step is and how that's going to get you into the private equity industry. Just to talk a little bit about private equity, of something that I think might be, or the 2 aspects of private equity that I think might be interesting to you. One is the deal side, and the other is what I refer to as operations. Now, it's not back office operations. This is, let's just call it, the mid office, and I'll explain what that means. So first, as it relates to deal professionals in private equity firms are those ones that find, analyze, and recommend the transactions that the firm might do, whether it's a controlling stake that they take, whether it's a non-controlling investment that they make, a loan, whatever the case may be. The deal teams are the ones that are out there trying to find it. in order to kind of work through that, the same networking that it was done on the investment banking front really should be done in the private equity space. So again, even though it probably is a little bit more difficult to find those roles right out of university, to the extent that you've got connections in private equity where you might be able to get a leg in the door, you definitely have to leverage them. Leverage board members to the extent that we can make introductions. Networking events, although they're limited when they come to campus, to the extent that there are networking events, even in the cities that you want to end up in, try to get to those. But again, getting onto that deal side, the best approach to take is going to be going through the investment banking route. The other angle of private equity that I think is interesting is, again, this mid-office or operation. So what a lot of the firms figured out was they can bring in a lot of experts, former consultants, former senior individuals within private companies that have an expertise that they can leverage to do two things. One, to help the deal team actually execute on the transaction or decide whether or not they even want to do the deal by going in and analyzing management, analyzing processes, and determining whether or not the company can actually be fixed and what the possible exit strategies can be to increase the value of that company. If the private equity firms that then decides to do the deal, those operations experts are then put into the company and they actually fix the things that they identified during the due diligence. So this operations function could be a very interesting field for those of you that might not necessarily want the deal side, but want to be engaged in private equity. So a lot of times, again, it could be from the big four, it could be from a private company, it could be from a consulting firm. That's where the private equity firms are looking to gain that expertise, and that expertise can be in a wide range of areas, whether it be management coaching or Six Sigma or Lean Sigma or HR, or process improvements on manufacturing plants, whatever the case may be, financial reporting, whatever the case may be, whatever your expertise might be, a private equity firm might be able to leverage it in order to, one, determine whether a deal is valuable, and two, determine or work towards that exit strategy that they see creating value. So that's the other aspect of private equity that I think is interesting, and something to consider if you're interested in that field. Quickly turning to consulting, and Jay, I think, did a great job of kind of laying out the background of the opportunities in consulting, the industry expertise that you might develop over time. What I just want to talk about real quickly is ways that you can get into consulting. So I kind of view that there's really two paths. The first path is you join a consulting firm, an advisory or consulting firm, and based on the expertise of that firm and what they've done on other clients of theirs, they determine the best process or improvement that they can make on clients going forward. And so you're put on an engagement and you learn these ways of improving companies by the experience that the company has overall from past customers, past clients of theirs. So you develop that expertise. At the same time, you're learning about industries that you're interested in, and you start to move in that direction. So whether it be McKinsey, Bain, BCG, the big four boutique firm, you gain expertise by being part of a consulting team and learning based on what that consulting firm actually is using to improve that current customer. There is one barrier to entry, particularly as it relates to the larger firms, the Bains, the BCGs, the McKinseys, and that is an ACT score of 30, so that is definitely something to keep in mind. The second way that you can move into consulting is you actually are in public accounting, or you're with a private company or a publicly traded company, and you are doing something every day, whatever that may be, accounting, finance, technical expertise, process improvement, leadership, HR, whatever that is, you do that over time. You become a technical expert. You lead teams to do that. You make mistakes. You learn from those mistakes, and then you decide to leave and you decide to consult on your expertise. So that is the second way that you can move into consulting, and that really was my path. I started at KPMG. I went to Credit Suisse. My background was very much investment banking and private equity. I landed at TPG. All of those positions, I was learning more aspects of things that interested me, and I decided, 5 years ago, to leave and just start a small consulting firm to focus on small and mid-sized companies, taking what I had learned, the mistakes that I had made, and helping them not make the same mistakes and grow in a very controlled manner. So I took the latter path, but both of them can really, drive you towards a very successful career in consulting. So that's just a little bit of an add-on to what Jay had talked about as it relates to the consulting world and how you could start to think about getting there, as you begin your career. One final note just on entrepreneurship, because a lot of students that I've spoken to in one form or another do have something going on the side, some business, some opportunity. I would say as it relates to that, each case is definitely different. The world has changed. I recognize that, in each case you need to evaluate your own responsibilities in life and your risk tolerance. But I would say, strongly consider the opportunity. You're young. You've got the opportunity to kind of give it a shot. And there are a lot of careers that will, where you can go from there based on what you learn in that environment. So I would say, if that is something that is out there, accounting is a great foundation for entrepreneurship. And to the extent you have that opportunity, I would strongly consider it, based on your responsibilities and risk tolerance. So that, I think, is my little spiel. So with that said, maybe we can turn to Q&A. Michael, maybe I can turn it back to you. And if you can just relay the questions from the audience or from anyone that is online to us to the extent we can't hear it. And we'll pass it around depending on who's best to answer.
What's the difference between someone who does tax, within accounting, at an accounting firm, and between a tax lawyer?
I guess that's for me, huh?
Yeah, John, go for it.
All right.
You got tax in your title. You got to take it.
I got to answer that one. Okay. So the difference that I found, because a little more background, when I was at BYU, I debated going to law school and becoming a tax attorney, and decided that it was not worth the extra 3 years to do it. The big difference between a tax attorney, if you're going to go for a law firm kind of a situation versus here, is the attorney can draft documents, write up wills and estates and those kinds of things, and we don't do that as accountants. So for me, it wasn't worth it. Now, there is, if you're talking about going to law school and wanting to go to law school and then come into the tax world, there is a benefit for that. Law school teaches you how to think in a different way, teaches you how to write memos in a different way, which can be very beneficial, especially if you're going to go into, say, an M&A tax practice or an international tax practice or something like that. Then that gives you more learning on how to learn. So that can be very beneficial. If you come to a Big Four environment, you don't practice as an attorney. You're not practicing law. But you're working here. And so we do have a lot of attorneys that work for us in those specialty practices, but it's not necessary to have a law degree to come work for us and to do all the things that I mentioned. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that answers the question.
Great.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the question was, there's a little bit of a catch-22 with management consulting from what the student has seen, where you need to have a job to get experience, but you also need to have experience to get a job. How can you go about navigating that?
Jay, do you want to take that, or do you want me to take that.
Sure, I think we can tag team. Let me go first, and then Joe, you can follow up. I guess it is a catch-22. I would just say, I mean, it is difficult to get into management consulting. We're going to be pretty transparent there. Not everybody that has a great internship gets into management consulting either. So it's not a win-win to have the internship. At the same time, that does increase your probabilities by having an internship like that. I will say that getting an internship in management consulting is ultimately going to be a function of your networking and how much you really want that internship. Not everybody's going to get those internships, but the ones that do get them without experience are generally those that have networked a lot, that know individuals in the space, that know the insides and outs, a little bit of what they're interested in, and that have connected with the right folks who are making those hiring decisions for the internship opportunities. So there's a lot of effort that goes into getting an internship as well as getting a full-time offer in management consulting. And I think the same can be said for anything in consulting, and even in investment banking, as Joe was mentioning. The amount of effort and is going to be a function of your desire. And it's hard work, and it takes a lot of networking and effort to do it.
Yeah, I completely agree with Jay. I mean, I think that definitely is how to approach it. What I would say is, if you are interested in consulting, don't get discouraged if you've got to start someplace else in order to develop those skills, develop that expertise, develop something that you're passionate about that you want to consult on. Whether it be public accounting for a number of years, whether it be a private company, whatever the case may be, the career that you are going to start with from the School of Accounting at BYU is really going to develop you significantly. You are going to learn a tremendous amount that you can leverage to the extent that you want to make that move into consulting. So even if you don't get that opportunity right out of school, consulting is in your future if you want it to be. Take a first step to something that you are passionate about, that you think you're going to enjoy, that you want to learn, that you want to develop an expertise in, or at least you think you do right now. And if it doesn't work out, you make a move to learn something else. But develop that, and the consulting opportunities are going to come your way. So I think even if it's not a day one, because you don't get that internship, you don't get that initial full-time job, you can develop an expertise to become a consultant and move in that career path pretty quickly.
So this question is for Angela. A student would like to know what benefits she's seen from working in public accounting before going to this internal audit or internal accounting, and if she would recommend doing that.
Sorry, I'm hearing a lot of feedback. Hopefully you guys can hear me. But I absolutely recommend starting in public accounting. A little anecdotal story, and aside from my role at True Blue, I also am part of a fourth generation, we're defying some odds, their family business. And actually, I'm on the board of that as well. And as we've worked with succession planning with my brother to eventually take it over, he went and got his MBA, and it was unbelievable the conversation that he and I had. This was about 5 years ago, as he was working through that and getting his eyes broadened because he'd worked for the business for about 15 years already. And it made me realize how much I had learned and how lucky I was that I got to sit in all these audit committee meetings and work through presentations and thinking about my audience. I remember one time I was working on one.com, and I was on a flight flying over to another big global company, and I was pretty stressed out. I was trying to read through a whole bunch of 10Ks and 10Qs, and I thought to myself, wait a minute, time out, 11. This is a good problem to have. You're 28 years old. You're going to all these meetings with C-suite level folks, and they care what you have to say, and you're working through it. And so the experiences that you get in public accounting are just so unmatched because of the profiles of the clients that they have, and the support that you have behind you, and just that apprenticeship model is so rich. And so that's one of the things that I'm really excited about now that I'm at True Blue, is to build a similar type of culture. I mean, there's no way I can match the big four in any way, shape, or form, but I can within that internal audit department. And really, really, culture is such a hot topic right now next to cybersecurity, but really be a part of that in impacting other folks' careers. So I absolutely attribute my success in being able to get to this role and then interact at the level that I have been because of the background in public accounting. So if I had the opportunity to do it all over again, I absolutely would. And I just got to the point in my career where I was like, do I really want to be partner? And for some people that answer is yes, and other people it's no. And the firm was completely supportive in my decision. So I think it's really thinking and doing some of that soul searching what's best for you. Easier said than done.
The question is, with all the careers that we've been talking about tonight, what's the best way to go about figuring what's the best fit for us if we don't really have a sense of what we want to do exactly yet?
So I don't know if anyone's got any good answer on that one. I'll start with it's yeah. I've spoken to a lot of students over the course of the last however long 2 or 3 years, and I will say a lot of students seem to have this master plan as it relates to their career. Where they want to go right out of university, where they're going to be 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, all the career moves that they're going to make and all the opportunities that they're going to be afforded to them. And what I tell them, and it is great, and I understand that there are a lot of responsibilities and people need to be thinking ahead and thinking about where they want to be in their career. But I promise you, your career is not going to go like that. You think you know what you like right now, you think you know where you want to be, and a call will come in from a headhunter, or your client will approach you, or you'll get into a particular career and you're like, this is just not for me, and you're going to need to make another choice. So personally, I don't necessarily have a good answer as to where you start. Obviously, out of all of those things, what I would suggest you do is continue to gather information, speak to peers, speak to professors, go to networking events, speak to the recruiters that come on campus, speak to board members. Again, I know we've touched on a lot of this stuff at a very high level. We are more than willing to spend time with every student to get into a little bit more detail of our experiences and our background so that you can make an educated decision on where you want to start your career. You may start your career and decide this is not where I want to be. You just get up, you dust yourself off, you make another decision, and you move on. And that is what life's about, and that's what your career is going to be about. There's really no way around a little bit of trial and error here. And you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to, you can look back and say, I regret that. But the important thing is that you think about where you were, what you liked, what you didn't like, and where you want to go as you move forward. And eventually you will find your sweet spot. Again, it happened to me. There were high points in my career and there were low points in my career. And those were all based on decisions that I made. And some of them were the wrong decisions, but you make new decisions and you move on. So I would suggest at this point is just gather a lot of information, and you have to decide where you do want to land in those that you've mentioned, those that we've talked about, others that are going to be opportunities for you because of the fact that you're coming out of the School of Accounting, one of the top 3 accounting programs in the country from BYU. Like, that is going to afford you a lot of opportunities, but you have to make that first decision. I don't know if anyone has any other thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was going to jump in there. At the end of the day, you're at BYU, which is, as you just mentioned, an outstanding program, and you've got all these world-class employers in front of you. And maybe it's not the perfect job, but I would say ask a lot of questions and just keep asking questions of yourself and those around you, and that'll help hone in. But at the end of the day, you really can't go wrong as long as you kind of have the mindset that I do. And maybe I'm not a typical auditor and that I'm more like an entrepreneur, 75% full glass, but I'm sitting here saying, wait a minute, maybe I didn't love that position, but what did it teach me? And taking some of that and just continuing to build that resume, it helped you hone in and continue to figure out where you want to be and where you want to be successful. And I will say as well, life can throw some curveballs at you. There may be personal reasons that you may need to shift or turn left or turn right or turn around 180 degrees, whatever it might be. And so finding a company that can support that and that has people in mind is how you can be successful and kind of ramp up when those times are fine and ramp down or plateau, if you will, when you need to focus elsewhere. But you got to be happy in your personal life before you can be successful in your professional life. So you got to find a place that's going to allow those two to not balance. We're accountants. We're not balancing journal entries. We're integrating our personal life and our professional life.
Yeah, I would also just add and echo the comments on talking to as many people as possible. Gather your information, do your research, but you still need to act. You still need to make some decisions. You need to go to club meetings. You need to listen to folks that are coming and speaking to you and giving and take advantage of those opportunities to ask questions. For me personally, it was a couple different things, but it was going to a club meeting and learning about an opportunity for me in the Big Four related to corporate finance that I never knew existed on the deal advisory side. And that opened my eyes to that and allowed me to take a class, an investment class that further helped refine kind of my interest in that area. Now, I will tell you, I did an internship in tax thinking that might be an avenue for me and quickly decided that was not the right avenue for me. So there are decisions that you make where you learn along the way and you continue to refine the choices that you make. And if you follow your passion, as Angela said early on, if you follow your passion, the things you're interested in, the things that you're excited to actually study about rather than just do homework, those are the kinds of hints that you get along the way that help you determine what you need to do.
My question is directed to everyone, but I'm very interested to know what brings joy to you guys in your careers. What's one aspect of your career that just truly brings you joy and lets you know that this is what you love to do?
I can go. I mentioned earlier that I'm passionate about people and working with people, but I get really excited when I see that light bulb go on, and I love it when it's a junior staff person or an intern, or like it was today when I was helping my boss, my CFO of a public company, work through some internal control matters. And just being that trusted business advisor, for me, that's the intersection of where it all comes together. And I feel like, okay, look, this internal audit can have a reputation of just being a check the box exercise and a cost center, but there's times when we can really be value add. It's just that it's not always the tangible side of the house. It's more what I call the intangible assets and those relationships and those value based ideas and considerations that help us avoid risk or possible extra expense or contingent liabilities that could occur.
For me, similar to Ann, am I on? I didn't come back to the screen. I think it's there are a couple of things, but as I get further on in my career, I think the most rewarding thing is giving back to other people and seeing the people in my practice that I work with progress and learn and grow and reach their goals. And if I can help them put themselves in a position to reach their goals and to become fulfilled themselves, then that is the most rewarding thing that I can do.
I would echo that. I think the most rewarding thing for me is, again, similarly, it's the people. It's the interactions you have, the relationships you build. It's the people around you, helping them to be successful and giving them opportunities that you were given along the way. So that is the most rewarding. Some of your question, I think, related to how did you know, what do you enjoy about what you actually do on a day-to-day basis? And for me, in deal advisory work, I love working on multiple deals in different industries and having it constantly change on me all the time. I love that. I love change. I love to stretch myself, and I love the fast-paced environment in deals. And then from a public accounting perspective, I love being able to do that in a place where I have a little bit more flexibility than I would say you might have in investment banking. And so for me, that's a win-win, and that's why I do what I do. But the reason I keep doing it is really related to the people and how rewarding that is.
And Glenn, this is Joe. I'm kind of in the same boat, and I know it sounds like a kind of a very boilerplate answer that we're giving you here, but I'm sure you can appreciate just, you know, in you know, just the schooling that you've had, the university that you're at, your friends, your peers, the camaraderie that you get at a university like BYU. It is about the people, and so all of us tried to find that in our careers. I can say personally, you know, it wasn't always there. Again, different organizations, you know, afforded me different relationships. I am a big proponent of the fact that I think personal relationships do foster professional relationships. So some of my very closest friends are people that I've worked with in my life at the various firms that I've worked for. So, you know, I know that, you know, we've kind of all said it, but finding the right culture of individuals that that you enjoy working with, that have the same values as you, that are working towards the same goals, that have the same passion, that have the same drive and urgency in getting things done. Finding organizations where you fit with the culture, I think will help you find the people that you're most comfortable being around and working with. And I think you'll probably have a similar answer to us if you do find that. And it might be a little trial and error, but you'll get there. I'd like to, you know, kind of, and I think actually one of the questions really hit on a lot of these points, but, you know, I do want to say that I know that this might seem overwhelming. This is why we're doing this, is to get you thinking early on in your you know, university studies, to think about the various opportunities. We want to introduce ourselves and make sure that you understand that we are here to support you. Again, you're looking at, you know, 4 of the people that are on the Student Development and Placement Committee. We have another, you know, 3 or 4 that are on the committee, as well as many other board members that are available to speak with you. And so as you start this journey, as you learn more, as you speak to more people, as you have more questions, please, you know, leverage us. Again, this is, it is a journey. You know, you can do a lot of planning, but, you know, curveballs are going to be thrown your way. You know, choices are going to have to be made, and your career path, you know, will be a little bit different than what you've got planned right now. But if you always take advantage of the opportunities that are around you, if you think it's the right fit for you, you know, you will enjoy it quite a bit. It's quite a ride. And so that's part of it, is enjoying it. So I'd like to just right now just put a little plug in for these webinars. If you can provide feedback to Brian as to whether or not this worked for you, whether the topic was on point. We also did a webinar. Angela and a couple of other colleagues of ours on the board did a webinar back in the winter of 2018, Women in Accounting. So we have that recorded. I would definitely recommend you taking a look at that. It's a great webinar. And we're also going to do another one in the winter of 2019, where we're going to talk a little bit more about soft skills and what is important for you to have or start to develop once you enter the workforce. So please look forward to that. Thank you all very much for attending. Thank you to John, Jay, and Angela for you know, participating and presenting invaluable insight. And thank you to Brian, McKay, and Michael for getting this all coordinated. We really do appreciate it. And Michael Remington, who I don't believe is there, is our IT person and kind of made this all work from that perspective as well. So thank you all very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care. We appreciate it.
Thank you.